Ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived. Before we start, look, every so often, but not super often, I do an intake window on coaching where we slash the prices significantly. Some of you will remember this happened last August, where we basically did a 50% discount on coaching, which took the prices to exactly where they are now. This time, instead, what I am doing is giving no coupon code, but just taking the prices down. So this is the official April intake window. We do these twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year. It gives people that are looking at the budget side of things an opportunity to get on board and do TRT coaching with me regarding sexual function and fixing sexual dysfunction. There are no coupon codes, but for each of the coaching options, the single session call, the 3-month and the 6-month, there is 6 to 8 slots open for each. And once they are filled, and they're probably going to be filled this month, mid-month, or toward the end of the month, then prices go back to the original level. So keep that in mind. I'll keep the graphic on the screen for you guys. And let's fucking start. Let's have a discussion quickly on a couple things. Yesterday, I did a piece of content which showed that talked about the 5 best ways to manage estrogen, in my opinion, refined over the years from coaching. The other major point of that video, though, was that there are a lot of folks that are claiming there is no mechanism by which estradiol inhibits erectile quality on TRT, either on TRT or off TRT. And I've been bringing mechanisms to the forefront for years. And another one came about yesterday where elevated levels of estradiol in a male rabbit, as well as elevated phytoestrogens, plant estrogens, caused an inhibition of erectile quality, erectile function, by first blocking the cholinergic mediated facilitation of nitric oxide. So the smooth muscle couldn't actually relax and blood couldn't enter the penis and gain an erection. And also estrogen cranked up the anti-erectile chemical norepinephrine. So this is kind of a case in point here. Like this is why I harp on this so much. I don't just suggest that estrogen inhibits erections because I'm on the lower estrogen camp. Right. I wouldn't care. If the science told us estrogen was good for erections, I would be promoting estrogen for erections. I cannot sit in front of a global audience and not tell the truth. I can't do that. I cannot operate from some idea that sounds good, like some philosophy, just because like I'm enamored with myself and want you to believe my philosophy and I think like I'm some fucking Greek philosopher or something. I can't do that. By default, almost like Jim Carrey in Liar Liar, I have to tell the truth. Boys, manage the estrogen. Get it in your range, your TRT protocols, and your experience is going to be a lot better after that. What else? All right, let's get into questions. Yo, what's up, my brother? Hey, Ryan, how much HCG are you currently using in your protocol? I just reduced my HCG dose via increasing my test dose to experiment with this because I've never run very lower end doses of HCG to 90 IU per week. I want to say it's just between 85 and 90. It's hard to get it exact when you're talking about an insulin syringe and like an eighth of a point on the insulin syringe. So it's about 85 to 90 IU. That's because I bumped my total testosterone intake up to 6 clicks of the 100 milligram cream. So that's equivalent to 3 clicks of the 200 milligram cream, all in the morning. There is a difference, however, and people like to say, well, if it's the same amount of total testosterone that you're getting, why wouldn't you just dose 3 clicks or 2.5 clicks of the 200 milligram cream and you'd get the same thing as 5 clicks of the 100 milligram cream? And the answer is because it's a 20% concentration, you actually peak higher on all hormones via the pharmacokinetics of a higher concentration cream despite the total dose. Same would be true. Like we all know, you'll peak higher in testosterone if you inject a bolus of 200 at once versus injecting, what is that, 27 milligrams a day? So something to be conscious of if you're trying to dial in TRT between those two testosterone cream concentrations, the 10 and the 20%. So I'm running 6 of those. Everything's good. I woke up at the fucking strongest erection this morning and then last night in the middle of the night. That's the DHT for you, but it's only in the presence of estrogen, which is in my range. Now, at this cream dose, if I had pushed the HCG up to 150 or 200 IU, I would almost certainly have erection problems. In fact, I've replicated that before, and that's what happens. And this isn't just me. I mean, this is why I need to make it clear to people. It's like I think that some folks want to convolute the reasons why you might be having problems on an HRT protocol to like all these other factors. Like I've heard people suggest that the gut and the metabolism of androgens therein is like influencing, your sexual function and shit on TRT. Like all these other things like the thyroid, the liver, insulin problems and whatever, they're like a very minor role. And frankly, 80+% I would estimate men that are on TRT that are having problems do not have insulin resistance. They don't have liver dysfunction, and they don't have hypothyroidism. So, and they don't have gut dysfunction. We need to understand that it actually is as simple as controlling the estrogen, getting it into your range, and having enough DHT with functional enough testicles. We need to understand that. Now, at the same time, if people are taking, opioid receptor agonists like kratom, it's going to increase prolactin, and that's going to cause you to have sexual dysfunction despite numbers being in range. There are other, very objective things that can go wrong, but we should not be looking at TRT from the perspective of, a philosophical approach to what may inhibit your ability to metabolize estrogen and all that shit. That stuff is maybe 5% influential, 10% influential, unless it is actually problematic. And in some of these cases, hypothyroidism really doesn't influence estradiol all that much. It will increase prolactin. It could actually give you a pituitary tumor that secretes prolactin, but it's really not managing, estrogen or doing much with estrogen. So I'm just really interested in clearing up the bullshit that is being put out by people. I am not a fan when you are giving advice to people live on the internet that they are going to go and take, and it's going to change their lives. I am not a fan of fucking philosophizing. I am a fan of acting strictly from the scientific literature, telling the truth to people and leaving your ego out of it. That's what I'm a fan of. So all that said, 90 IU of HCG. Is it worth using Primo alongside testosterone cream to reduce aromatization and increase anabolic effects? Yes, certainly. Yes, but it's if you need it. Testosterone cream via its conversion primarily to DHT, if you're putting it on the testicles, because you got all these 5-alpha reductase enzymes in high quantity. It's like 5 to 10x more than anywhere else on your body. You're going to make more DHT from that, and people tend to even go on somewhat higher doses sometimes of cream, and their estrogen's 25. So, but I've also seen the converse be true, where people take the suggestion of 200 milligram cream 4 clicks a day, 2 in the morning, 2 in the evening, or 3 in the morning, 1 in the evening, and their total T is at 1700 and their estradiol is at 76, right? And they've got erectile dysfunction because of it. In that case, if this is you, estrogen's over range, then absolutely, start at the 75 to 100 milligram dose range, do it twice a week, just split that up into twice weekly injections. If that doesn't work and you're sensitive to the reduction in estradiol via manufactured inhibition of aromatase, which by the way is different than naturally lowering your estradiol by having a lower dose, then you'd want to microdose it at 10 milligrams a day or so. 7 milligrams a day. You just have to find your range. But yes, absolutely. Primobolan will manage the estrogen. It's a fact. It will do it. It will lower your estrogen on your blood. And it will cause you to be more anabolic, and your muscles will be denser, and you will be stronger almost instantly. And you won't have any physical side effects typically. You just have to monitor your lipids because, you're increasing hepatic lipolytic activity, or a lipase activity, I should say, which is going to skew your cholesterol. What's a good starting Z? Haha, my brother said whoops. I guess we'll get to that in a sec. Where did I go here? What are generally good ranges between trough and peak for total T, free T, and estradiol and DHT? How much DHT is too much? Mine peaks at 278. Well, the only way that would be too much DHT would be as if it's causing you hair loss, or like excessive acne or something. I'm about 250 nanograms per deciliter last check. This is the week before I went to Florida, so March 15th or something. And I my hair is pretty healthy. It would be better with less DHT, but I still have all of it, right? And it's not falling out in the shower, any of that stuff. And I do not have acne from it. So people respond differently. At the same time, though, in the beginning of TRT, I had acne, and then I went on cycle 500 total test, and 4,500 or 5,000 nanograms per deciliter of actual blood levels of testosterone. And then my acne, as I scaled down into sports TRT, then back to TRT, went away. What did I do? Did I fry out the whatchamacallits, the sebum production? I'm not really sure. Okay, so that's the answer to that. Good ranges for peak and trough are estradiol between 20 and 35 if you can manage it. If you can't manage it, you might drop down to 12, 15 picograms per milliliter and then 35 at the peak or so. That's a good range for estradiol. For total T, in order to get there naturally, you're looking at 400 to 900, 400 on the trough, 900 on the peak. That's typically how this works. The guys that I have dialed in really, really well, meaning like they've got the youthful erections, their fucking libido is spiking multiple times a day, and there's no sensation and climax problems, are peaking around 700, 800. They stay physiologic in that range. This is with cream typically. They've got sky-high DHT. They trough on total T at about 370, 400 or something. That's overnight. And into the next morning. In fact, overnight it's probably higher. And then the next morning, right before application, they're just above the line of deficient, but they wake up feeling fine. They're waking up with boners and stuff like that. Now, that's not everybody. Some people can stay in the 500 to 900 range. Some people can stay in the 600 to 1,000 range. You're just going to have to find where you've got estrogen functioning, estrogen blood levels in your range so that you can maintain erectile quality throughout the duration window of that day's dosing. What's a good starting dose in milligrams for Indractum? I don't know that there's a milligram concentration of it. You're really looking at milliliters, and I believe what you want to do is try to take like a small milliliter size spoon. You can get those on Amazon, and just do a mill of it. Just do a mill of it and see how you fare. Dialing in DHT itself, which Indractum is, it's just a lower concentration of it. The best way to start is at the lowest possible dose. It's a little bigger than a pea size. Putting that on the scrotum and then seeing what it does, and then adjusting from there. You might find that you need half of that dose, right? Just to manage at the penile tissue level the prevention of estrogen-induced increases in norepinephrine, which cause erectile dysfunction. And at the same time, to manage estrogen's effect on blocking nitric oxide via blocking cholinergic-mediated nitric oxide and smooth muscle relaxation. So it's just about finding the right dose. There is no good starting dose, but as small as possible would be the most general answer, or the best answer. Taking vitamin K2 has caused me to need calcium supplementation. Yeah, I guess that could be true. I don't get much dairy in my diet, vitamin D at 65. Considering pulling K2 and just using the sun, it's just a mineral issue. K2, I know, can cause problems in people. Yes, it can cause you to have, I believe it can cause some kidney dysfunction. So you really want to be careful with taking K2, and you're probably better off getting that shit in food. That isn't for everybody. Some people take it and they're fine. But I think that stuff has that's not something that you want to willy-nilly take as a supplement. Good morning, brother. When will you start Anavar, and when will you use to manage lipid profile? I'm not really, honestly, I'm doing okay where I'm at. I have come to the discovery that I never work on upper chest much. I only kind of work on the lower. So the lower part and the outer parts from flies are built. And so I am now, with my current TRT regimen, which is just a moderate, dose of test cream, I'm now very focused on trying to build my upper chest and then slowly putting on mass over the next 6 months to a year. So at the moment, I'm just not interested in doing it. It would be fun as fuck, and I would be strong as hell, and that would be wonderful, but I'm just not interested in doing it. When the time comes, I'll probably turn up the cardio. I run 1.5 miles every other day at this point. Sometimes 2 miles if it's downtown in the city. Well, it's nice. I'll be running more. So I'll turn that up to maybe 2.5, 3 miles, and then I'm going to take high-dose tacotrenols to manage that. If my lipids are still out of whack, I'll probably start dosing, what's that stuff called? Basically an anti-reflux natural compound that is made up of orange peels, the liquid from orange peels. What the fuck is that stuff called? Can't think of it off the top of my head. 50 milligrams test plus 150 of Primo every other day for cutting. So 50, wait, I don't understand what you're saying here, because if you're doing 50 every other day of test, that is 175 milligrams a week. And okay, your Primo is almost the 1-1 ratio if you're doing 150 of Primo a week, because you didn't specify here. You just threw it all in one. So I'm not really sure how to answer that. But if you're doing 150 milligrams Primo a week, yeah, it'd be good for cutting. You'd be anabolic enough to be able to be in a calorie deficit and lift weights and be strong, if that's what you're asking, definitely. But probably going to mess with sexual function, because you probably crush estrogen a little too much with that. Depends on how you aromatize. Came off SIP 2 weeks ago and been chilling on just HCG. How much longer should I wait before bringing in prop so there's no overlap? As long as you feel good. Yeah, you're still running on some of that Cypionate, no doubt. But it's coming out faster than I think the literature suggests. At 4 weeks, most of it will be out. The effect is pretty negligible at that point. But I would say ride that out, because then you prevent running into estrogen problems, because you've got still some Cypionate and then you add prop, and then then you can't really tell where your estrogen is going or what the estrogen number is being influenced by. Is it your prop dose, or is it your prop dose plus the leftover Cypionate? Right? It is actually definitely the latter. So I'd wait till you start feeling low androgen feels, and then you start your prop. That is the best way to do it. Easy doesn't care about his hair. So the current protocol: 6 clicks applied to the scrotum. Yeah, that's my protocol. 20 milligrams DHA in the morning. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and with that, I hover right on the line. So I hover literally dude, I'm on the actual line where below which in hormones I'll have low estrogen symptoms, and above which I'll be fine, but EQ starts to fail after that. So I'm hovering right around that line right now, and I can tell where that is. That line is usually the line where you've got the fucking strongest nocturnals, because that's driven by lower end estrogen and high DHT. So my boners in the fucking middle of the night are out of control. And sex is good, libido is good, sensation is good. Testicles have probably reduced size, maybe 10% from where they were, but still fully functional and hanging and all that good stuff. So it's been interesting. I haven't experimented for the longest. I've kind of just been dialed in and doing what I've been doing, but I figured, hey, for science and for the discussion on the channel, let me at least get some time with lower HCG and increasing the test and see how, we fare. And things have been pretty good. Speaking of estrogen and erections, I get the best erections 24 to 48 hours after taking 0.1 milligrams of anastrozole. But I also get the low estrogen symptoms of fatigue and joint pain. What's up with that? What it means is that you're probably better off not manufacturing the lower end estrogen states, but you're better off trying to have that fall naturally via manipulating your protocol to have estrogen fall right around where it is, or maybe slightly higher than where it lands here. You have to measure that. But this is no surprise. I mean, again, I just broke down 2 of the primary mechanisms. There's a boatload of mechanisms by which estrogen inhibits erectile quality at the tissue level via neurotransmission inhibition and blockade, and via cranking up norepinephrine. I mean, with elevated estrogen, as I demonstrated yesterday in this rabbit study, we are turning up the anti-erectile chemicals, and we are blunting the pro-erectile chemical chain. I just don't know why people haven't looked the fact that there are people that are going, estrogen, yeah, whatever, I'm almost like, are you guys frauds or what? Do you not know, or is it just you don't want to admit it because you've been saying the converse for so long, and now you look like a fucking idiot if you went out and said, hey, you know what, I was wrong. But of course this happens. That's just it, man. We have a reference range in estradiol, whether we're on TRT or off. Guess what the reference range doesn't do if you go on exogenous androgens? Guess what it doesn't do? Doesn't change, does it? Does the reference range change because you're on androgens? Oh, now you're on androgens. There's a new reference range. People say, oh, well, these reference ranges weren't, established when people were on TRT. People, are on TRT. Okay. Well, why haven't they been changed? Why isn't there a secondary reference range, a TRT reference range? You'd think the medical establishment would be on this. There isn't, right? they established a reference range in males based on the available data of the range of estradiol in males. So anyway, this is just what happens, man. You know, I mean, plenty of people are reliant on the reduction of estradiol in order for their penis to work, which would make perfect sense considering the literature clear, you know, like the science on this is as clear as it can get. As clear as it can get. So if anyone's telling you to not manage estrogen or it doesn't matter, they are simply ignoring what is very clear in the scientific literature. And that's what pisses me off. You can't call yourself a fucking expert if you're telling people information that is wrong. I'm not going to waver on that. Can you review this TRT protocol and its pros and cons, excluding the HCG? 130 cypionate, 1x weekly. Okay, fine. 0.06. That I think that's fine. The only problem I see is eventually you might run into some degree of sexual dysfunction via not having functional testicles because you don't have HCG in it in your protocol, unless we're just excluding my analysis of the HCG. But I think that's sensible there. Yeah, I think that's sensible. You know, now you got to run the estradiol at day 3 of taking that anastrozole, and then run it again at day 7, so that you can see, you know, at the peak of anastrozole, right when the estrogen starts coming back up, where is estrogen lowered to, or where is it at? And then once that anastrozole has pretty much worked its way out of your system and you're not really blocking aromatase enzymes anymore, where is estrogen then? After a month from switching from cream to cypionate, I've noticed less bacne, beard not as dense. However, anabolism seems better. Oh, it's not due to less DHT. It's due to more steady state testosterone and more consistent agonism of the androgen receptors, as well as a lot more nitrogen retention. That's what it's due to. Yeah, less or more DHT is not going to affect anabolism all that much, except for the higher the DHT, you're going to have less subcutaneous water under your tissue, which will make you look leaner, you know, or have a more dense kind of physique. But yeah, I mean, you might have been dosing cream too much. You might have had fluctuation. I think you were the one that had wild fluctuation. So if your hormones are going from fucking 0 to 100 back to 0, you're going to have acne. Yeah. Yeah. You want to be semi-stable, but not completely the same all the time. Remember, as natties, this is another thing that blows my mind when people say you should have the exact same level of hormones all the time. As natties, our testosterone levels fluctuate between 200 and 400 nanograms per deciliter throughout the day. That's a big swing, dude. You say peak total 900. I see most people talking about going to the 1,000 to 1,500 range. Does 1,050? Yes. Typically, yes. If you're not going to manage estrogen with a chemical, Romacin, Arimidex, Primobolan, Masteron, Proviron, Letrozole, then those numbers of testosterone are almost definitely going to yield supraphysiologic estradiol, which is going to start inhibiting erectile quality. So, you know, that's why I'm saying that. Now, you can peak at 1,700 if you'd like to. I peaked at fucking 4,700 nanograms per deciliter on my cycle. But I was using Aromacin to keep estrogen around 30, 35, 40, and that worked for me. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. What are my thoughts on free T? I am above 20 supraphysiologic at just 500 total T. Well, I guess that means you probably have lower end SHBG potentially. I think that free testosterone is, you know, what we're really looking at when we're trying to determine how much test we're actually able to use. So it's an important metric, but trying to dial in the free T and excluding dialing in the rest of the numbers is a bad way to dial in TRT. You're better off assuming you have a good conversion to all the metabolites, but especially free T, from analyzing the total test, the DHT, the estradiol. No, not citrus bergamot. It was, what is this stuff that, orange peel? Let's see, orange peel stuff that helps reflux. It is D-limonene, Limonene, limonene. That stuff is what I would take in addition to tocotrienols and more cardio if I wanted to manage lipids on Anavar. Now, some people go more extreme than that. Some people have like a fucking terrible cholesterol profile as it stands, and like they can't take anabolics that modify liver cholesterol activity, and they're taking more hardcore drugs for that, actual statins. Primary goal of DHT supplementation has affected DHT2 axis. It can affect them. It can affect that in many ways, and those two hormones in many ways. The goal is to get more DHT conversion in your penis. That's the primary goal, as well as to not go deficient in blood levels of DHEA. That's the goal. At the same time, it is an androgen which can convert both to DHT and estradiol. And I'm sure I could get to the mechanism, but how your body decides whether to make more estrogen from it or more DHT is unknown, at least to me. Or Virgil emailed you twice about getting on your program. I've had no response. Virgil, I remember your initial email, and I sent you to the page to get information on it. Yeah, look, if you're ready to book, just book, man. I just reduced the prices on everything for the April intake, so just get it booked. You know, we went. I remember our email thread, and we went back and forth on all of it. I am an extremely busy person that gets 80 emails every 2 days from people on TRT. If you're ready to book, just book, man. I tried to go on a cycle for the first time in my life for 3 months just to get my feet wet, and I never got used to having to inject every 2 to 3 days. Also need to keep HCG. All right, don't know what you're asking there. Will I ever do cerebral lysis again? Later on in life, I would say. If I start getting any kind of neurodegeneration, or like if I'm 50 and I'm starting to forget things, I might consider it. Yeah. In my experience, creatine for muscular fullness. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it certainly works, bro. It works. It's just, it's making you retain more water in the muscle, which is what ultimately makes the muscles bigger. Now, obviously, like muscles are made up of a lot of water, right? So, it's anabolic in and of itself. Compared to androgens and stuff, it's obviously abysmal, but it's certainly it's enough to make it so that it's not like a negligible effect. That's why people talk about, taking a lot of creatine. I don't think it's an essential supplement for performance. No, I don't think it's essential. What's my opinion on Ovitrel HCG? Comes in a pre-filled pen. I think it is great. It's probably about the most effective HCG you can get. However, it's pretty expensive. 250 IU of HCG. 1 click is 250. 5 clicks test cream. What's the concentration? 100 milligram or 200 milligram. If it's 100 milligram, that should be fine. And I would dose that to start like twice a week, the 250, and see where estrogen lands. Went from 25 milligrams daily prop to 15 due to over-aromatization. How long should I run this protocol to see if it works? You should give it 2 weeks, and then you go run estrogen at the peak and trough of the prop. It's going to be hard to get that exactly, so you'll have to run estradiol sensitive at like 4 or 5 p.m. That's like your effective peak, and then you would want to run it again the next morning before you inject. So whatever gets the estrogen in range, but you shouldn't be doing this blindly or thinking you should change the protocol without looking at your bloods. You may have symptoms of erectile dysfunction or whatever, but you need to pair the symptoms with the blood to get the whole picture, and then you can make an intelligent decision to adjust. 100 milligrams Sustanon a week. Okay. 25 milligrams of Proviron a week for PSFS recovery, trying to resensitize the AR. Should I aggressively increase the dose? No. And secondly, you probably don't need to resensitize the AR. Yeah. There's no evidence to suggest that you've got desensitized ARs. In fact, most people that try to tell you that there is like a desensitization in the androgen receptor response are largely full of shit. What I think they're referring to is that if you are starved of DHT for a long time, androgen receptors will probably downregulate. Well, they will upregulate relatively quickly after getting enough androgens in the system. The problem with PFS is you've exposed your body to an improper conversion of test to its metabolites, skewed in favor of estradiol versus DHT, where you have elevated conversion to estradiol above a normal man's thresholds, and you have noticeably lower end impaired conversion to DHT. DHT is what keeps your penis healthy, assuming estrogen is within a healthy range. But you've got like basically like with PFS, the perfect recipe to cause destruction to your penis. Elevated estradiol and not enough DHT. That's going to cause destruction to your penis in the form of deposition of collagen and fat cells where smooth muscle is supposed to be and all that stuff. Now you can reverse that, but you're going to need to be on, high enough DHT. I think it looks like you retracted your comment, but it's still up. I think that 25 milligrams per virin is good, but you'd want to be dosing that every day and not once a week. With 6 clicks of testosterone cream and 80 to 90 IU of HCG, what are your peak and trough levels? I had been peaking previously on a protocol that landed me right around where I am in terms of function at 900 and troughing at, 470 something nanograms per deciliter of total testosterone. That's in the morning right before application. So I'm physiologic the whole time and basically super physiologic at the peak. And that's probably where I am now. I'm running bloods this coming week on the current protocol, just out of curiosity. But I've tailored protocols for thousands of people and myself over the years. So I kind of know where I'm at. You know what I mean? I feel really good. Although letrozole is wicked strong, 1 drop of 2.5 milligrams per milliliter per week is about equal to, 0.5 to 0.75. Letrozole increases DHT more. There are a couple studies I found. Yeah, I suppose that it would. It would do that via it's a more powerful blocking agent of estradiol or of the aromatase enzymes. Taking 25 milligrams per virin on 120 a sip is generally good for managing E2. Yeah, you're in the proper range of cypionate for provirin to do something for you regarding E2. Meaning, if you push 150 plus of test and you have HCG in your protocol, because again, that causes aromatization, extra aromatization, then 25 milligrams of provirin a day is likely not going to lower the E2 enough to get it in the 30 or so picograms per milliliter zone. So I think you're in the right place, but you're making too many switches. You're one of those guys because you were, having problems on the cream, and I know you want to do something about it, but you got to make small changes. You went from cream, you were peaking and troughing too much, and then, you didn't actually, my last suggestion to you was to try to stabilize by adding some cream in the latter part of the day, like 4 or 5 p.m. so that you don't trough as hard. And you can get a good stability while still fluctuating a little bit while keeping estrogen in range. Now you've gone and made it so that you're going to prolong the time it's going to take you to dial in because you need to wait at least 6 weeks so that cypionate is built up into steady state. And then you can start deciding. First, you have to look at bloods at that point, at the 6-week point, and then you can decide, okay, how does this feel? Even at that point with long esters, via androgen receptor activation and via just back end kind of mystified hormonal stuff in the background that we can't even see and measure. The translation would be your body getting used to that dose. Then you got to give it a little time to see where your body lands. Even if the numbers look right, your body might need a little time. And I think this has to do with the hormone levels at the tissue level. Like if you decrease DHT for a while, it takes 2 to 4 weeks, 4 to 8 weeks, depending on which study you're looking at, to start getting erectile difficulties. Probably because you had enough at the tissue level to manage the androgen gene expression. Then you reduce it. It takes some time for that good shit to go away. Same is true if you bring DHT in after being starved of it. There's a lag period where even though your numbers look good, say you're super physiologic on DHT, well, at the tissue level where the DHT does its work, it might need more time to work. And that's just something for folks to consider. With 70 IU of HCG a day, it gets really expensive. No, it does not. No, that's a low dose of HCG. That does not get very expensive. Could put half in the freezer and use it next month. I don't really know what you're suggesting here. I guess my question was, do you get any skin issues from having to inject often? And also, is sub-Q good enough for both Test-E and HCG? Since I couldn't handle T in the quad, couldn't walk. Yeah, I would just inject in the glute then. That's what happened there. One time I pinned test prop in the quad in the vastus lateralis, and I had knee pain for a week and a half. So the quads, man, are fucking sketchy with intramuscular. So people do it. They're totally fine. But you want to inject in the glute, man. Delt or the glute, but preferably the glute. We've always injected testosterone in the glute. It's the best place to inject testosterone, boys. No, I don't have any skin issues. Never had any skin issues from injecting too often. You could inject 5/8 inch needles in the upper glute, and they're high gauge. You can get 5/8 inch insulin syringes on Amazon that are high gauge, so they're like insulin syringes, so they really don't hurt that much. They don't hurt at all. They just a mild muscle puncture, dull pain. It's negligible. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you probably just hit a nerve. That's the problem with vastus lateralis TRT injections, is that you fucking hit nerves. You can't hit nerves. And then you were up the creek, my friend. Up the creek. Up Schitt's Creek, that is. Boys, April intake has started. Some of you remember in August, we reduced the prices on coaching 50%. This time I have done the same thing, except for there's no coupon code. We just reduced the prices. So we do this to fill slots, 6 to 8 slots for each of the coaching programs, after which we close the discount. So get on board if you can. Get on board while you can, because these are going back to $34.99 for the 3-month and $14.99 for the singular call and $47.99 for the 6 months. I'm going to leave that on the screen for you boys. And let's go. We like to do that. Like if we ran this all the time, I would be overbooked. The reason I do this, by the way, is because like with these, like with discounted coaching, I'll get to the point where I'm pretty at capacity with coaching and I really can't take any more. At that point, they'll go back to regular pricing. And that's just the nature of business. Like if I'm very booked or close to capacity and you need coaching, you will have to pay a premium for that. You'll have to pay more. But now I've got a lot of folks that through that last run and through just the monthly coaching that comes through have closed sessions and are closing sessions, so I can open this up again. Why do people feel better using Primo instead of AIs for estrogen control? Because it's more mild and it's anabolic. So like Primobalin makes you feel fucking awesome. It's got, a very DHT heavy feel to it, and it makes you feel more manly, and it makes you feel, you're going to be stronger at the gym and have more energy and more protein synthesis and more lipolytic activity. You're going to burn fat easier. So there's a host of reasons. With AIs, though, they offer no anabolic effect, no increased androgenic effect other than somewhat increased DHT, just because you're blocking, one of the conversion, one of the pathways of metabolites. You're just going to naturally end up with more of the other, in this case DHT versus E2. But AIs are also harsh drugs, like because they're made for crappy health conditions like cancer, breast cancer, among other things. They work too quickly, too powerfully. So they give you side effects. Your body goes into like a shock of sorts, manifesting as side effects when you, in this case, when you block the conversion of test to estrogen at like a really, really great amount, like a high affinity for the aromatase enzyme, like the drug has. If I go back on cream, I'll do the twice a day, man. Would you recommend like 2 in the AM and 2 in the PM, or 3 in the AM and 1 in the PM? For you, because you fluctuated a lot, what I would do is I would run 5 clicks of 100 milligram cream in the AM on the balls, and then I would run 2 clicks of 100 milligram cream on the shoulders, on your delts at 4 p.m. That's what I would do if I were you. And if that takes estrogen too high, then take that 4 p.m. application site and switch it to the testicles. I trough at 0 on everything, with just 1x test cream in the morning, and can't sleep if I apply it again at night. I'm doing test sip daily for the base and then test cream in the morning for daily peak. Well, if that works for you, that's good. It looks like you are peaking pretty substantially really quickly on cream. That would make sense, because then that explains why you trough so quickly, because you just go whoosh. It's almost like it's behaving like test suspension or something for you. And bodies are variable, man. That kind of shit can happen. That would also explain why you can't sleep well at night if you dose at nighttime, right? Because you're probably just, your body is just peaking in androgens faster than the average body. That's the only explanation for that. Ryan, I'm on propionate 15 milligrams every day. blood work, come out. So E2 sensitive. Oh, E2 non-sensitive is 75. Prolactin's 24. I've got morning wood every morning. Physically feel fine, motivated, but libido flat. Well, your prolactin's over range, so your libido is going to be flat. Prolactin's the biggest inhibitor of sexual function, period. Even worse than estradiol, but not much worse. Prolactin shuts everything down, period. You need to get your prolactin down to 15 at least, and then try to shoot for the 6 to 8 nanograms per milliliter range. Estradiol, non-ultra sensitive at 75 means it's probably close to that. It could be 45, 50, 65. It could be right in that range. And that's still going to be anti-erectile for an estimated 95% of men, 95% of men. There's these freak people who can, tolerate 55, 60 estradiol. That's where they feel good. They probably make loads of DHT. There's some gene expression thing that is causing the DHT to have a very pronounced anti-estrogen effect at the tissue, so they need actually more serum of estrogen to balance it out. But in the end, what that really is like just enough estradiol and high DHT. It's the same thing that I'm trying to promote, that I see work with people. It just ends up looking a little different on the blood. But you need to get that estrogen down to 30. That's what I would do if I were you. On 50 milligrams every day of prop, if your estrogen is going to 75, first of all, is that the peak or the trough? It's probably the peak. You're not a great responder to prop. You're also over aromatizing. Where's your total T? I don't know. Why wouldn't you include that? Where is your total T, dude? Because if your total T is 1800, that's why you're going to 75 estradiol, dude. Yeah. So, if that's the case, 7 to 10 milligrams of prop a day would be my next move. Thoughts on mixing prop with SIP and doing every other day injections? It's too general of a question, man. Because, you have to factor in keeping estrogen within your range and feeling good and having no side effects at the same time. Having good sexual function. So my thoughts on it are, who knows? Who knows? I'm trying to get you to think nuance. I'm not trying to be an asshole. Who knows, bro? Because where does your estradiol go? Where does it go at the peak and the trough of this? Where is it sort of staying? And how are your erections? How is your libido? What is sensation like? How is climax? I can't give you thoughts on doing this without breaking down the details. I think combining them works. And you could do either way. You could do a base of cypionate and then a little bit of prop every day. Or you could do prop every day and then once a week you inject 40, 50 milligrams cypionate. Wood, total T 600 nanograms per deciliter trough. Yeah, where's your peak then? That's telling me your peak is substantially higher. That's why you're over aromatizing. Do you apply the testosterone cream 6 clicks only to the scrotum? Yes. I'll only put it on the forearms at 3 or 4 p.m. if I go below the threshold in estradiol. Then I start not being able to retain water. And that hasn't happened to me so far, but the moment that might happen, I'm right on that edge, I can tell. But the moment that might happen, I would throw like 2 clicks on the shoulders at 4 p.m. one time, and that would probably settle that for like 4 to 5 days. And at which point it would kind of go back down. But it doesn't appear as if I'm going to go too low in estrogen. I'm definitely low end estrogen right now. So if I go measure this, it's almost definitely going to be 22, 25, something like that. Whereas I feel the best at literally 30. I've replicated this both with natural protocols, like to get like a protocol situated where estrogen just falls in that range. And with 168 of cypionate per week doing daily injections intramuscularly with 250 IU of HCG every other day and 0.125 milligrams of Rimidex once every 7 days. 30. Square at 30. Fucking felt amazing. So I'm a little bit below that now, and I can tell. But I mean, I enjoy the strong erection quality with lower end estrogen. I really enjoy that. And I also enjoy the DHT dominant state. I don't really have a huge problem being a little more empathetic and a little more sensitive and a little more, estrogenic if it's kind of up there at 30 or so, just a little more. That's fine. Got to have a balance there, but I truly like the fucking DHT dominant state too. And the boner quality with no Cialis is fucking insane. Opinions on prop injections at night. I think that's fine too, but It's just the functional part of your day, you might start troughing. Because if you inject at 9 p.m., say you peak at 5 in the morning, it's kind of weird to be peaking at testosterone when you're sleeping. As a natty, you peak when you wake up, usually. But then if you trough too quickly, you're going to start troughing in the functional part of your day. Like if you start troughing at 3 p.m., that's terrible. You're going to start feeling like dog shit at 3 p.m., and that's not good. So I think it could work, but if that happens, it's not working for you. That's not working. And, at that point, brother, I would suggest that you move quickly on doing something else, doing something different, brother, something different. At that point, you're going to want to do something different. Not going to want to stay there, brother. You probably want to change. Probably want to change it up at that point, bro. These things, I don't know. I mean, honestly, anything that comes out and it gets a lot of attention is super big, and people are like, "Oh man, this is a life-changing thing." I just am skeptical of. These things have been on the market for a long time, and I don't know. I've not really witnessed them change anyone's life, so I think they're useful. I mean, this is a critical chemical you need in your body, but I think that you could probably achieve getting it by taking niacin. No, I'm not on test prop anymore. No, I switch for a variety of reasons, man. If I go back on test prop, it'll be 25 milligrams a day, 100 IU of HCG a day, and that'll keep me functional with sex function. The problem for me with prop is that I need to use an AI if I want the anabolic effect, because I need to be dosing 35, 45, 50 milligrams a day to get the equivalent anabolism that I'd get, on the cream doses that work for me or the cypionate doses that work for me. So, it's like to get that anabolism, I've got to dose high and take an AI. And that's fine. I just don't really feel like taking an AI at the moment. Opinion on Dr. Will Power's proposed mechanism for PFS. This must go to Reddit. Well, how would I give my opinion if I don't know what his mechanisms are? Yeah, the mechanisms for PFS are, a bias conversion to estradiol over DHT and a limited conversion to DHT. Those are the primary mechanisms. That's just it. Again, listen, I think that there's some weird thing in the human psyche that likes to overcomplicate things, because surely it couldn't be this easy. Surely it couldn't be that easy to just get high DHT and controlled estrogen with a pretty high testosterone. Surely it couldn't be that easy. Except I get PFS people where we do that and they gain their sexual function back and their PFS symptoms go away. Surely it couldn't be that easy. Listen, there are a lot of people on the internet in these forums about PFS that are overcomplicating this condition. Sexual dysfunction is governed by hormones. That's it. Unless, of course, something is blocking sexual function like prolactin or you could induce sexual dysfunction by dosing loads of tyrosine, and then you increase your catecholamines, but the stimulant catecholamines like noradrenaline, and that has an anti-erectile effect. Otherwise, though, it's hormones. So you can I don't know what the guy's theory is though. So you can post it if you like. On cream, there's a study out there that peaks around hour 3. So playing at 6:30 a.m., you're peaking at 9:30. Why are you saying 3 p.m. is the peak? Because if you look at that graph, you stay physiologic after that peak. Did you look at the study? Did you look at the graph? What did DHT do? Like this, but it stayed like in that same physiologic range. That's what it did. After which at hour 16, it starts to trough. Did you look at the study? That's why, bro. If my trough is 600 propionate every day, 15 milligrams, what do you think my peak? So if nanograms per deciliter trough on test prop at 15 milligrams a day is 600, then your peak is probably 1500 plus. Yep. And that's why you have estrogen at 75. By the way, estrogen lags behind testosterone in terms of clearance of your body. So that's why the next morning you stay at 75, because you would need another additional day and a half or 2 days off of prop for that to go down to like 30. then it's going to drop really quickly. But, estrogen clearance it works a little slower, I mean, you could speed it up by taking calcium D-glucarate, but you'd have to take it every day, sometimes twice a day or 3 times a day, like a gram, and a gram to make that work. Boys, as I said, we do this twice a year. Some of you remember we did it in August last, where we massively reduced the prices of coaching. Last time I gave you guys a coupon code to do that, and this time there's no coupon code. We just reduced the prices of coaching. Slashed them all right around 50%. This is a limited intake window. There are 6 to 8 slots for each program open. Once they fill, prices will go back to their original price. The original prices, I understand, are steep, and I do not want to necessarily charge that, but I am booked at that point. That's why they're as high as they are, because I'm close to overbooked. So if you need my attention, then you'll have to pay a premium for it. That's just how business works. But for now, I've got slots open. A lot of people have closed their sessions because we're completed. The sexual dysfunction is resolved, and they've moved on with life, focusing on their life instead of having to ruminate about their TRT protocol. And now a lot of slots are open. Thanks for the live cast, by the way. Very thoughtful and helpful. Of course, brother. I'd like to do more of them, but I just don't have the time, my brother. If I had the time, though, I'd do more of them. More of them. Daily ones. Brother. Any other questions, guys? If you got them, ask them. Otherwise, let's talk about the weather. It's 78 degrees. Finally. I timed a vacation at the end of March to come back to Pittsburgh when April hit. And now it's April, thankfully. And we've got some nice weather. We're going to fluctuate back and forth. Next week, there's going to be a couple 40 to 50 degree days, but that's tolerable considering summer is almost here. We have a weird transition where we're just going to transition right to summer, and the spring will be a short period of time. It's basically, usually the latter couple weeks of April, but we're getting a taste of it in the early days of April, thankfully. So I'm excited for that. After the live stream, my girlfriend Jill is coming to my house, and we are going to get suited up and go on a run downtown in Pittsburgh. So any of you guys, I know that some of you live in Washington, and some of you are somewhat close to Pittsburgh, and I know that I've got some followers from Pittsburgh. So if you see me running with a blonde chick out in the city today, it's literally me. I'm going out to run. Just a couple miles. We're probably going to do 2.5, nothing major. It's kind of hot. Just an introductory run into, the spring. I've been running through the whole winter, but very little bits on the treadmill because it's been freezing fucking cold. But her and I started running again outside when we were in Florida in the mornings. So, she's got some stuff with her kids and some other stuff to deal with. So she'll be here at around noon. And then we're going to go to the city and run. And I'm fucking pumped. High doses of proviron can improve symptoms of PFS. Yes, but you don't want to make the mistake of thinking okay, proviron's helpful via the DHT input, so let me just throw a lot out of it. The same principles apply. You should have pretty functional testicles. You should have estrogen in the 20 to 25, 27 picograms per milliliter range. You can get away with 30 PFS people. You want to be on the lower end of still healthy estradiol, and you want to have, 90 nanograms per deciliter plus of DHT, if you can help it. With Ovitrail, HCG at 2 clicks, that's 500 IU alongside 5 clicks of 10% cream. Would you dose it twice or 3 times per week? I wouldn't dose 2 clicks. 500 IU of HCG at a time is usually, you can make it work, but you're a lot more likely to increase estradiol over your threshold. And then it might drop under if you're dosing it infrequently or back to range. So you'll have ED, and then erections will work on Thursday. You have ED on Monday, erections will work on Thursday at the peak, at the trough of HCG. So you do not want to be doing that. Trough at night is around 470 total T estradiol, 2295 DHT. No morning wood. Peak is super physiologic after applying test cream. Where's your peak in estradiol would be my question. See, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, right? Because your estradiol is in a great range for morning erections, and DHT is definitely high enough, or it should be high enough for morning erections. I don't know. Are you dosing a lot of nicotine? It's a vasoconstrictor, so that can certainly inhibit erections to some extent. Do you need to be higher on DHT? I've seen this too. I did an entire video on super physiologic DHT maxing where I found this weird phenomenon in coaching where it's not that the bloods don't matter, but where people at 80 or 90 weren't getting the proper erectile quality that they desired on TRT, and they had to be 140, 150, 200, 250. So that could be the case for you. You're going to be there or close to there or closer to there on your peak here, but I don't know what your peak is, man. So you probably want to try. So yeah, if your peak is super physiologic on what though? Total test or estradiol? If you're going up to 60, 70 estradiol and then back to 22, that might be your problem too. Even though it's reading at 22, then estrogen has a pronounced effect on increasing norepinephrine, which is like literally the anti-erectile chemical, right? It also blocks nitric oxide function. It blocks cholinergic-mediated smooth muscle relaxation. So, if it's having a lag effect because it's really high at your peak, that's probably what's happening here. Because no one knows how long that NE stays around in your dick. And the blocking of nitrogen function stays active at the penile level. We don't know. We can't measure that. So those would be my theories on what is happening. You're welcome, brother. Couldn't imagine how ripped you'd look at 1 to 2 milligrams of erythritol, considering you're already in amazing shape. The problem with that stuff, okay, so there is a problem with that stuff. And it lies in the mechanism of action. Yeah. I don't, first of all, I do not want glucagon receptor agonism. Let's see, potentially it's weight loss and it improves insulin sensitivity and may mitigate the side effects of typical GLP-1 drugs. Increases energy expenditure, calorie burning, and promotes the breakdown of stored fat. What was the mechanism that I found that this was a little weird? I think for me it was really lowering blood pressure and decreasing blood glucose levels. I already I'm 110/60. The lowest blood pressure reading that I had, it was in the last month or so, was like 106/60. My blood pressure is already low, right? Just because of running and all that other shit. So that's the thing that would probably steer me away from it. What do I think of a hybrid of 20% cream, 2 clicks in the AM, and test phenylpropionate? How often is best for... I did a video on phenylpropionate, so you should watch that. Can't give you advice on using cream with a hybrid. I need to remove Hunter from source list. The website is still active. They're no longer sending orders. You guys. Listen, you are dealing with UGL, and you're dealing with a UGL that's pretty popular. Okay? First of all, circumventing the clinics and going UGL, you're going to have to accept that it's not going to be a 1-week shipping period like the clinics are. Number 2, you're going to have to accept that some of these guys get way overburdened with orders and can't respond to your emails, but are working on it. Thirdly, you have to recognize that if they're out of stock of something and they're overburdened in terms of time, they're not going to be able to email you back. In these cases, like I've heard this like 3 times over the last 4 or 5 months. We need to remove. Dude, I get shit from Hunter all the time. Clients of mine get shit from Hunter all the time. It's just that sometimes the guy gets backed up. That's just it. Go with PPL or go with AP. If you don't like this, but eventually your stuff's going to show up. This has happened to me. Did I bitch about it? No, I recognize the guy's fucking busy, and I was like, oh shit, let me go to AP and grab what I need. Always have backups of everything, no matter what. But no, I mean, what did I get from Hunter recently? Proviron. I got Proviron from Hunter like 3 weeks ago. Can't dial in 20% cream. I'm now on 2 pumps in the morning. Yeah, 20% cream is hard to dial in. Any more and I get overstimulated, any less I feel low at night. Took 0.25 and felt the D hard again. Interesting. Yeah, I might be peaking too high in estrogen, but 2 pumps is not a lot. You might be an over responder. And look, in some cases, it just doesn't work out perfectly. You peak too high and too fast on cream. Not everybody. Like most people, cream is great, but if you peak really quickly, it's going to cause problems, man. It's going to cause problems. But obviously you're going high in estradiol because if you're taking, was it 1/5 of a milligram of an anastrozole, 1/6 of a milligram, and you're getting erectile quality, that means estrogen got too high. Um, did I miss cerebral lysin? Cerebral lysin made me feel happier. It made my brain, it improved my reference memory acutely. So like I would be able to hold more information in my head at the time of dosing it acutely. I just felt like I was like on a cholinergic or something, like Nupapt or any of the racetam drugs. And it was good. It fucking was good. Generally, any long-term positives, it's hard to say. You know, one of the things that it really does is goes and improves the brain's vasculature. It actually was used to rewire the brain's vasculature, if you will. It's a very non-scientific phrase, after strokes, and it works. So pretty powerful stuff, man. What can PT141 peptide be useful? When? If your hormones are not in the right place, and somehow, you know, your brain's the hypothalamus's release of dopamine is blocked, inhibited, impaired at some level, then PT141 via that and a few other pro-erectile mechanisms will induce erections and libido. Do I know anything about halotestin? I've read a bit. No, not a ton. No, I'm not a specialist. What causes blue balls? Yeah, I have blue balls on TRT. I think just generally functional testes, you know, we'll have that. But some people don't get it on TRT. I don't know. I think we could probably Google that and figure that out. Well, it's on NSI 189. Pretty epic. Will I use Proviron again? Yeah, I just ordered some, and I'm just thinking of doing it for the physique benefit. I just like how I look with it. It'll fry my hair for a little, but it's just fun to take. And I love how I feel. It's different than dosing DHT. It's different than having a high DHT like protocol, because it's just a bolus. It hits you very strongly. That Proviron feeling is like man feeling, man. It's the best fucking feeling. So I've got 25 milligram tablets in my cupboard that just came. And, you know, I'll probably throw one down here and there. Like, I don't want it to lower estrogen too much because I'm right on that range. I won't be dosing it daily. But I like how I feel in it a lot. In what situations can Kisspeptin be better than HCG? None. What is my opinion on it? No situations. It's not evolved enough. And the studies are on Kisspeptin 50, I think. And the only thing we've got available is Kisspeptin 10. Now, you can buy Kisspeptin 50, but it's very fucking expensive, and you got to buy it from a chemicals company. Kisspeptin 10, it's just not strong enough or stable enough. You got to dose it 3 times a day, you know, for it to be stable. And at the same time, it increases prolactin in some people, and that's not good. That'll just be completely counter to what you want. I don't know why it's doing that. I really don't. Well, I mean, it's working directly at the, you know, gonadotropin level, like at the brain side of the gonadotropin level, like, you know, it just stimulating the gonadotropes, specialized cells that secrete gonadotropin. So it's that where that action is directly on the pituitary, you know, where the D2 receptors lie, where dopamine's supposed to bind to and prevent prolactin increases. So I think it's interacting with the D2 receptors, or somehow causing hyperfunction of the lactotropes, and that causes you to release more prolactin, and that is not good. So there are things wrong with it. There are just things wrong with it. There's things wrong with HCG too, but it doesn't do that. The most primary thing wrong with HCG is that it's estrogenic. You know, it's estrogenic. That's it. If I had to do nootropic stack routine, hormonal balance for productivity, well, I mean, TRT for sure is like all most folks ever need. But on top of that, low dose modafinil, like 50 milligrams a day, would be fucking all you need. If you want extra like memory and processing power, then like 500 milligrams aniracetam, 50 milligrams citicoline on top of that. I think you'd be a beast. Killer Elite, prescribe 150 milligrams test sip per week, going to split 3 ways. Okay. Got it. 50, 50, and 50. I think that's reasonable. Prescribe the 0.5 of anastrozole to take 48 hours after the test. On that dose, what I would do is I would start without the anastrozole. Yeah. See only if, number one, you get high estrogen symptoms, and number two, if the estradiol goes over range at any point. With 50 every, 3 times a week, you probably go over. You probably go a little bit over. But if you have no HCG and you're a pretty healthy person and normal aromatizer, you won't go over. So taking that anastrozole is going to crush your estrogen in that case. But if you tend to over aromatize or aromatize, substantially over 30, like 55, 60, then the anastrozole will help. But that dose of 0.5 is probably too much and will almost definitely give you a catastrophic reduction in estradiol within 24 hours, which is going to give you symptoms. So if I were you, I would split that 0.5 3 times with a pill cutter. So you get 0.125 or so. And better yet, have your doc or your clinic prescribe you or send to a compounding pharmacy like Empower Pharmacy in Texas, 0.125 milligrams or 0.10 milligram compounded tablets of anastrozole. Any tips for PME on TRT? I don't know if that is. When should I take tablet? Hey, Ryan, not tuning to you for all. Hope you're well. What's up, DJ Millen? Hope you're great, man. I remember all your comments in the past. Well, I mean, I don't remember all of your comments, but I remember you being very active on the streams. Hope you're great, dude. Nice to see you back, man. Hope your life is cool, dude. I hope you live somewhere where, because it's going to be spring soon, or it is, depending on where you are, you're happy because the sun is back out and you can do things outside. I hope your life is going well. I hope you're prosperous. I hope you're chasing your goals, and I hope you're fucking happy, dude. Thanks for coming back. Thanks for coming back, brother. Thanks for coming back, brother. I always appreciate the OGs, brother. Thoughts on enclomiphene instead of test? I think it's pretty crappy. Enclomiphene is largely a PCT drug. Yeah, it's a drug you take to restart your gonadotropin signaling from your brain via blocking estrogen receptors if you've been on test for a while and you want to get off, or if you went on a steroid cycle and you messed your natural production up. To do that for a set period of time, small period of time, until the testicles are functional again, the pituitary is functional again, and then you go off of it. But, enclomiphene is not TRT. I know there's companies out there that are going TRT, like this is TRT or something. It's not. It's not even close. And it is unhealthy to block estrogen receptors. It's unhealthy. It is deleterious to do that. Those companies got outed. One of the primary companies that was pushing enclomiphene, I think me and Vigorous Steve were just telling the truth about it on a live stream, and that dude sent me, the owner of that company, one of the major companies that pushes enclomiphene as TRT, which is complete horseshit, obviously, emailed me and threatened me legally. Which, if you're going to do that, I already know you're full of shit and an amateur. You don't threaten someone legally. You just sick your fucking lawyer on them is what you do. That's how you show people you're serious. You don't talk shit. You don't do any of that. You don't fucking say anything. They get a fucking letter from an attorney, whose signature says Esquire in it. That's how you're fucking serious. So I think the reason he was upset, though, is because we were telling the truth and they're selling enclomiphene, as TRT, which is, not TRT. At the same time, since you're 19, I wouldn't stack with 9BC or NSI. That's a bad idea. Listen, I can see in your profile pic, you look pretty fucking jacked. So have you been running cycles in the past, or are you not? If you're naturally that big, it's not. I can't actually see how big because the icon is a little small, but you look fucking good, dude. I wouldn't take anything. If you're natural, able to do that, don't take anything, man. Honestly, just wait till you're in your 30s and then get on TRT if you want to experiment. But, look, people are going to do what they do. So the best option, if you're trying to be more anabolic, would just be to use test. Not to get in the rigmarole of like fucking trying to dose enclomiphene and then going off of it, and then your test levels are going to drop after that, even though, you're already fired up in terms of the pituitary secretion of gonadotropins. You're blocking estrogen receptors, you have a clotting risk. You could increase damage to your eyes from blocking estrogen receptors in your retina or somewhere. And generally, that's not a good idea, man. I know a lot of younger kids are talking about, using clomiphene and stuff, but take it from me, the best thing to do would be test. But you've got to talk about that. This is just a disclaimer. Talk about that with a licensed medical professional, if you would. But test is definitely better. You never get annoyed with having to inject so often. I'm using cream at the moment. I inject HCG every day, but no, I don't. How fast did I get used to it? Instantly, because I knew that was what I needed to do and wanted to do. So all of that inconvenience bullshit goes out of the window. Don't take this the wrong way, but grow the fuck up, dude. If you need it, you need it. If you want to experiment with it, you do it. Tell us about when you first started and what you thought about it in the beginning. I first started at 210 milligrams a week of cypionate, and I was doing daily sub-Q injections. My estrogen went to only 35 because I wasn't dosing HCG. I got pretty anabolic and pretty strong pretty quickly, but my sexual function was very subpar, even with estrogen at 35, which normally would be fine. But testicle shut down, and I wasn't having the greatest of times. Energy-wise, perfect. Honestly perfect, but testicular atrophy and a bunch of other issues. So got on HCG pretty much right away. I had to lower the test dose. And I think at that point, that was the chain that led to 168 a week, daily intramuscular injections, 250 IU HCG every other day, and 0.125 milligrams Ribodex once every 7 days. And I'd keep my estrogen square around 30. Now, I would fluctuate here and there, but I had some rock hard erections and really great libido. I remember dating at the time, and shit was good, man. How about using a pen for daily cypionated daily HCG? Like one pen that injects all of them? I don't think so, bro. I don't think so. You're still gonna have to draw it in the syringe, and unless you draw the week's amount in a syringe, and then you have a lure lock needle attachment at the end that you change the needle every day. You could make that work. If you understand what I'm saying. Am I still dosing 40 milligrams cypionate once per week? No. So with this change, I've increased the total amount of testosterone that I'm using. So I was using 5 clicks of the 100 milligram cream a day. Now I'm using 6. So part of the goal, I went to Florida and I was like, I'm not bringing this cypionate with me. Like I've done this before, and it usually was the catalyst to a minor protocol change, and it was again this time, and I'm fine with it. I just didn't want to, it's prescribed to me, and I have, Defy Medical prescribed and Power Pharmacy shipped cypionate, but I just didn't feel like fucking bringing it. I was like, you know what? Let's just get a little more DHT, get a little more test, and lower the HCG to make sure the estrogen's dialed in. Basic principle stuff here. And so, no, I haven't needed that 40 milligram cypionate. My libido is really good. The 40 milligram cypionate is because my E2 was like around 18 to 20, and then libido would suffer, but erections would be fine. So then I'd inject the cypionate once a week, 40 milligrams, and libido would be fucking amazing. Erections great throughout the week. And then on like day 5.5, 6, then libido would start to noticeably drop. And I didn't really care. That was fine. I would just re-inject the cypionate. And that was the libido lever. It's just all about using tools surgically, to dial in the way that you need to. And right now, that lever for me, if that would happen, meaning if I would drop below 20 picograms per milliliter, at which point libido would start to suffer, would be shoulder applications of cream in the evening. Truly, how many people out there, especially in the Let E2 Go wild camp, have ever truly dialed in? It's an impossible mistake when dialed in. Libido, mental clarity, and energy isn't unreal. Yeah, like I've seen guys that have been dosing, high amounts of tests, and they're listening to the anti-AI crowd and the domadigestion crowd, and then they weren't dialed in, especially with sexual function and well-being. They were fucking emotional and angry, and their dick didn't work half the time and all this stuff. And then rather than lowering their dose, which is the way some people have to make this work, they dialed in an aromatase inhibitor. I mean, these guys are like fucking energy through the roof, anabolism through the roof, just wood all the time, like libido that's so crazy. It's like, fucking interfering with their marriage and their lives, which is a good thing, a good problem to have. Yeah, I mean, I just, you're not going to feel much better than on high androgens and controlled estrogen. You're not going to feel much better than that, And if you feel good on high estrogen with high androgens, but your dick doesn't work, I mean, what's the point in that? I've been there before. When I started my cycle, I didn't manage estrogen for like a month. I wanted to see like where it would go, and I'm pretty confident in my skills to get it where it needs to be if it's skewed. And sure enough, it went to 95. I felt pretty good. I was definitely on the emotional side a little imbalanced, but I felt physically pretty good. But my dick didn't work at 95 estradiol. So, would you ever do a video reacting to looks max forms of teenagers blocking issue with detached ride? Yeah, possibly. I mean, I think it's that is a tragedy that's happening. Yeah, that's a tragedy, man. There's nothing fucking good about that. I don't have hypogonadism. The main reason to go on TRT plus would be stop being skinny. I remember my trial cycle, I started looking more heavy after 3 months. What were your motivations? For me, listen, our not all men, but a lot of our testosterone, men's testosterone, starts dropping in the early 30s. So what I noticed was my muscle mass was harder to keep. So I had some pretty good muscle mass in my 20s. But then as I got to around 30 or so, 30, 31, 32, 33, it was harder to keep. Sexual function was okay. My libido wasn't great. I was very focused on business and work. So, that could have played a role. But primarily, I know that I felt suboptimal. And I went and ran bloods, and I was pretty low on total testosterone. Not quite hypogonadal, but just above it. And I'm like, this is why I've been feeling like fucking shit. So rather than go through the whole rigmarole, I mean, I tried some natural stuff for a while, and that worked. And then eventually it stopped working. Yeah. And then I was like, okay, we're going on test, man. Why the fuck not? And it's been life-changing. Honestly, life-changing. All right, boys, I'm going to end the stream. Remember, the intake window will close once 6 to 8 slots are open. I've promoted it twice, once on email and then once in this stream and then once yesterday on the channel. So I've booked 2 overnight last night. So, and that was for, I think, 3 months. So once 6 to 8 slots are open or closed or booked rather on all these, this goes away and everything goes back to original price because I'll be at max capacity at that point. That's why those prices are the way they are usually because I can't take any more clients. And if you need to pay for me at that point, you'll pay a higher price. But right now, price is slashed. 6 to 8 slots for each of the programs. This is the April intake window. We do this twice a year, 3 times max. The last time was in August. Dude, those of you thinking about getting on board, now's the time. Let's get it done. Otherwise, kick ass, rock on. I'll talk to you guys this week for more content, more slaying the BS out there on the internet, more deep scientific breakdowns, more giving you guys what helps you dial in. I can't wait. See you then. Have a great weekend. Peace.